everyone, and welcome to another episode of Changeling. I was in the foyer, but wasn't sure how I got there. Fuck, hold on. I forgot to set the keyboard. Jesus Christ. My bad. Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Changeling. I was in the foyer, but wasn't sure how I got there. I wasn't alone. I couldn't see them clearly. They bobbed in and out of the shadows, eyes gleaming in the faint light. They were fairies. Or that's what I assumed them to be. What else would they be? Strange eyes peered at me from every direction. The air was filled with some soft hum of moth wings and murmuring voices. I couldn't understand what they said, but I knew I should understand it. The language was strangely familiar. Where have I heard that? I was afraid, or at least part of me was. That part warred with the comforting feeling of belonging. At the back of my mind, I wondered how the rest of the family hadn't woken up. I wondered how all the fairies got in the house in the first place. Why weren't they here? It was then that a strangely familiar face stepped out of the shadows. The brownie? It stood in front of me, both serious and silent. The brownie looked at me, almost pleadingly, holding out its hand. I could only just see it through the haze. Small, brown figure that was the only familiar thing around me. I took its hand. The instant we touched the fairies, or the things I thought were fairies, blew around us with an angry hiss. And they were gone. In my head was a whisper, piercing, chilling. You promised! But in an instant it was gone, with the dream and the fairy intruders. And I was standing, awake but groggy in the foyer, and the brownie was still steadily gripping my hand. It led me upstairs into my room. I followed awkwardly, bending over as I tried to hold on. My mind was struggling to figure out what was happening. Sleepwalking again? That was obvious, but had those fae downstairs been real? If so, how did they get in the house? The brownie gently led me back to my bed, and because I was still half asleep, I followed obediently. It finally let go, and I snuggled down as the blankets were drawn up again and tucked around me. Something clambered onto the bed beside me, and long fingers gently stroked my hair. This is weird, but at the same time, it was sort of sweet and comforting. And I don't know, it was nice to have an ally to help me keep inside at night. I was glad I didn't banish the poor thing. My eyes grew heavy, and I felt myself drifting off to sleep. Thank you. I remembered the words as my eyes slowly closed. It gave me a long, almost sad look before hopping over to sit on the end of the bed. Weird or not, I felt safer with it sitting there, looking over me. With that, I finally slept. My head was pounding as I sat up in bed. It felt like my eyelids weighed 50 tons, and there was nothing in the world I wanted more than to go back to sleep. But I had to get up. Mom had already shouted up for me, and I really didn't want to deal with questions about if I was getting sick. I was already leery about facing everyone this morning. Whatever had happened last night had already faded to that pleasantly fuzzy space between dream and memory. I couldn't quite remember it all, but I felt like I'd been wandering around the house quite a lot, and I don't know what else happened. I rubbed at my eyes and rolled out of bed reluctantly. A quick stop in the bathroom revealed that I looked as bad as I felt. Man, I had to stop that sleepwalking and weird dream stuff, if only for the sake of my poor face. I wonder what helps with bags under the eyes. Cucumbers or something? I made a face at myself, then stopped to give myself a long, unhappy look in the mirror. Get your act together, girl. I was looking forward to Ellie and Shelley helping find a solution for this stuff. I threw on my clothes and shoved everything in my book bag before heading downstairs. Spencer was sitting at a kitchen table, his face looking pretty tired, as if he hadn't slept well either. I really hoped that wasn't because he had been watching me sleepwalk. That would be annoying, to say the least, not to mention extremely concerning. Talk about questions I don't want to answer. I side-eyed him as I poured myself a cup of coffee. The car keys were sprawled next to him on the table, so I assumed they either hadn't gone missing for a change, or that he already located them. Maybe the thread I'd managed to sneak to the basement work? Ugh, I wanted to ask, but how to do it without starting a fight? I chewed my lip, but finally decided to initiate conversation, just to sound things out a bit. If he decided to be a jerk, I could just flee. So, did you sleep okay? He glared at me, never a good sign. Someone was making a lot of noise last night, or are you just asking so you can find out if you woke me up? Whoops. To be fair, that wasn't my fault, not that I could explain it to him. I started softening up my things. I'd just go out and wait for Allie. felt so oppressive inside these days, like a black cloud was hanging over everything, like the smallest thing would set off another argument. I hated it. It was stifling. That thought gave me a slight pause. Stifling. I'd had that thought in my dreams as well, hadn't I? Was it possible the whole thing really was stress, and I was just acting out some unconscious desire to get away from Spencer? Though that didn't feel right either, to be honest. It felt like more than that somehow. And last night, I had the feeling there were definitely fairies involved in my dream, or whatever it was. I don't know anymore. I didn't have time to ruminate on it. Ellie's car pulled up in front, and she waved at me through the window. I climbed in the car and flopped against the seat with a long, painful sigh. Good morning to you too, sunshine. I feel like death. You look like it. What happened? I think I was sleepwalking again. I don't remember what happened. Are you okay? I think so. Please tell me we're going to have time for that solution you talked about. Definitely. We're going to get this sorted out today. I promise. I just hope it works. Me too. I leaned my head against the window and shut my eyes, letting the sound of the car lull me into sort of half sleep. It was only a short trip, but it helped a little. It didn't feel quite like my head was going to implode by the time we reached school. Shane? She gently shook my arm. Huh? Maybe you should sleep it off in the club room? I shook my head as I tried to rub away the sleepiness. I can't keep missing classes. Someone's going to tell my parents eventually. You look awful. Well, if we can at least keep me in my room at night, I'll probably sleep better. Just one more day of zombie Cata Shane, hopefully. Ellie and I climbed out, intending to split up as we always did, but I paused when I saw Ewan and Drayson walk by, chatting together. Huh. What is it? I didn't really believe they were friends. Ellie chuckled. Yeah, it's kind of funny seeing them together. Opposites attract. Ellie grabbed her bag out of the back seat and headed inside. I need to go to the office, so I'll see you later? Sure. I watched her go before heading in myself through one of the entrances nearer the stairs. As I approached, I realized Drayson was standing there alone. Ewan wasn't around anymore. Wonder where he went. Drayson was standing under a large tree, both arms up as he apparently examined one of the branches. He appeared to be mumbling quietly to himself. I raised an eyebrow. What is he doing? Well, given that he was a unicorn, who even knew? A freaking unicorn. It was so ridiculous that I couldn't help but smile to myself. This was the world I lived in now, equal parts ridiculous and terrifying. Well, maybe slightly more on the terrifying side. Otherwise, I'd be able to enjoy the ridiculous part a bit more. I shook my head and headed its way, planning to go past him and let him do whatever he was doing. As I neared him, I realized a couple of other people had also noticed him there. Ugh, why is it always her? It was Cara, of course, and that cute blonde girl that always hung around her. What was her name again? Emery? Is he talking to the tree? What a weirdo. Drayson didn't seem to hear them or pay them any mind, but it really irked me to hear what they were saying. Why were people like that? Drayson wasn't hurting anyone. Why not just leave him alone? I scowled at the two of them as I passed. Is talking about other people your hobby or something? If so, you guys definitely need to find a new one. Maybe take up knitting or something? Cata Shane! How? Did he hear me? But apparently not them? I shot him a smile as he bounded over to me. Hey, Drayson! Wow, you're just bouncing around from guy to guy so desperately these days, aren't you, Cata Shane? I think I rolled my eyes so hard I sprained something. Bouncing around? Seriously? That is your chosen direction of attack? Okay. Sorry if you think having more than one male friend constitutes desperate bouncing, whatever that means. Are you seriously forgetting that awkward kiss where you got completely rejected by Ewan? I mean, I'd want to forget about that too, but come on. Emery giggled softly. You kissed Ewan? I am going to strangle you, Cara. Drayson looked so horrified by that thought, I gave him a sheepish look. We were just rehearsing for a play, because that was definitely a believable line. What? I thought Ewan totally stopped acting. You're the same as you've always been. I can't believe I thought you might have changed. Oh, you never thought that. You didn't even give me a chance. The first day I was back, you were sniping at me and spreading rumors. So stop with all this disappointed parent crap, Cara. You and your crazy brother should have just stayed away. Crazy? Did she just call Spencer crazy? As soon as she said that, I just snapped. This was just a repeat of middle school, but this time I wasn't going to let people talk about him like that. I stalked to Cara, and before she could say another word, I drew my hand back and slapped her. What the heck are you doing? She tried to shove me away and get between me and Cara. Never call Spencer that. Ever. Kara stood there with her hand to her cheek, staring at me. Shane! He grabbed my arm and pulled me away. I let him because, well, I wasn't interested in a cat fight, but Kara had that coming. You're crazy too. The two of you have always been crazy. You ran away twice just for attention without caring who you hurt. That isn't what happened, and you know it. Her voice was edging into hysterical as Emery spoke quietly to her and tried to pull her away. Even your stupid brother ran away once. Is it some kind of genetic defect, or are the two of you just sick or something? Wait, what? Spencer ran away? Where on earth had she heard that? That never... The retort died on my lips as an old memory surfaced. I was sitting in our old house with Grandma. We were waiting for the other adults to come back. I was scared, because Spencer... The thought was shattered by an explosion of pain between both eyes, and I doubled over, gasping for air as the world tilted. Shane! I felt his arms around me, keeping me on my feet as my legs gave out. Ugh. There was a taste of vomit at the back of my throat as my stomach roiled in protest at the way the world apparently suddenly decided to take a crazed ride on a merry-go-round. Everything was spinning, and I wasn't sure I could stay standing. Wow, you can't answer that, so you're going to pretend to faint? You never can get enough attention, can you, Shane? Or are you just that sick in the head? You're the one ignoring someone obviously in pain. Doesn't it make you the sick one? Through the haze, I recognized Ewan's voice. The two of you should just get out of here. Come on, Kara. I didn't see the two of them retreat. I was too busy staring at the ground because it was the only thing not spinning. Ugh. What on earth was that? The pain was starting to fade, but I was still pretty woozy. If I moved too fast, I was definitely going to puke. And considering Drayson was in the splash zone, that would be very unfortunate. He always dressed in expensive-looking clothes, too. Are you okay? I don't know. Should we carry you to the nurse? Please don't. I would rather not deal with more rumors. What happened? I'm not sure. Just suddenly had an incredible pain and everything started spinning. It's fading a bit. Geez, I straightened carefully, putting a hand to my head as if that would stave off the dizziness. You should at least go up to the club and rest for a while. Vilos can probably get you out of first period. Yeah, okay, maybe I should. What was that memory? It had already faded beyond recall again. Ewan and Drayson both walked with me up the stairs. Drayson was the one supporting me most of the way, though I wasn't totally sure I needed it. But I didn't really want to tackle the stairs while dizzy, so I leaned on him just in case. Drayson quietly caught Ewan up on what happened before he'd shown up. I didn't have much to add, really. I just focused on making my wobbly legs work right. As soon as I got to the club, I sank onto the sofa and buried my face in a pillow. Why did I have to run into her first thing this morning? Not how I wanted to start my school day. Ewan joined me on the sofa with a soft sigh. I heard Drayson made an excuse and quietly leave the two of us alone. You okay? Nope. Sounds like that was pretty intense. Well, she's had it out for me from the start, so whatever. People are good at being cruel when they want to be. I finally looked up at Ewan, but his face was as inscrutable as ever. He wasn't wrong, and I guess that didn't just apply to people like Kara. It applied to people like us as well. Kara's an annoyance, but just that. I don't know what happened out there. She said something, and suddenly my head was hurting and I was dizzy. What did she even say? I don't really remember, to be honest. Weirdly, the whole thing is fuzzy after that. You've been pretty stressed out lately. Yeah, I really didn't think that could explain nearly passing out in the middle of a conversation. Then again, sleep deprivation could wreak some pretty nasty havoc, and I definitely had not been getting enough restful sleep of late. Yeah, maybe it was just that. Ewan stood and offered me his hand. What? Come on. Where? I took his hand hesitantly. He pulled me to my feet and, without answering, led me to the door. He knocked quickly and we were soon stepping through the courtyard. What are we doing here? Wanna go to class? Not really. So let's stay here for a while. Is this where you usually spend time when you're skipping class? He shot me a long look. I don't skip every class, I just don't like literature. I had heard him and Miss Roberts talking about that, but I didn't know I'd heard him that day, so I didn't say anything about it. It's my favorite subject, actually, especially now. I mean, the plays, Shakespeare. I really enjoy it. He didn't respond, but instead went to a spot on the other side of the courtyard under some of the trees there. He flopped down and petted the ground next to him. Let's talk about something else. Okay. I joined him, sitting and stretching my legs out next to his. Ewan snickered softly. You better not be laughing at how short your legs are. I'm not short, you're just a giant. Aren't fairies supposed to be tiny? He smirked down at me. Like you? Don't make me test how easy it is to knock that head off. He laughed quietly. So scary. He picked a few blades of grass, twisting them between his fingers. You should know by now, fairies are nothing like the stories, nothing like Peter Pan or Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, I noticed. Though, I mean, the whole flying with happy thoughts thing would be kind of fun. Only if you have enough happy thoughts to fuel you. Something about the way he said that gave me a pause. I watched him out of the corner of my eye as he stared down at his hands. I wondered why it was like this sometimes. I knew the head thing was weird and frustrating, but I don't know. Was he really that bad? You don't think you'd have enough? Happy thoughts, I mean? He shrugged. Maybe a few years ago, not so much anymore. Was he really that bad? Whatever happened when you know, turned into a full-fledged fae? He shot me a sharp look, but I just held my hands up awkwardly. It's fine if you don't want to talk about it, just makes me nervous. I drew my legs up to my chest. You're more experienced with the stuff than I am, but it seems like it's had a really negative effect on your life. I'm just now going through all this weird awakening stuff, so seeing like this just makes me worry about what's in store for me. You and flung the bits of grass away and leaned back against the tree. I don't think you'll have to deal with what I dealt with. Your dad's not a Dullahan after all. No, but whatever apparent fae ancestor I had could have been anything. I mean, what if I sprout a tail or something? That's going to be hard to hide from my mom. It still won't be as bad. You're not like I was back then. I don't know what that meant. We didn't sit there long. As nice as it was, I was feeling kind of antsy after what happened earlier. It was too hard to sit still, and I needed something to get my mind off things. I sighed softly and stood, brushing off my pants. Leaving? I think I'm going to go to class. Are you sure? Yeah, I think I need a distraction. I gave him a slightly sheepish smile. And I promised Danny I'd keep Ellie from falling asleep now that we're partners. He frowned slightly and looked away. Okay. I started back towards the door to the club room. For Shane? Yeah. If you need something, you just have to ask me. I know. I left him there and went back to the club. It was kind of a weird day. Kari kept strangely quiet about what had happened that morning, probably because there wasn't much of a way for her to come out of it looking pristine either. She was only confident with her rumors when the incident at hand didn't involve her. I was relieved to not have to deal with that, though. There was something else that was a little strange, though. It started as a prickle in the back of my neck, just a weird feeling of being, watched. I might have dismissed it as paranoia if I hadn't been catching sight of the same two people lurking around during passing periods or lunch. Two people I didn't really usually see around as often. Drayson and Brenna. At first I thought I was imagining it, but Drayson was kind of super obvious about trying to duck out of sight if he saw me looking his way. Brenna was much more nonchalant about it, but it was kind of obvious they were following me around. By lunch, I was ready to throttle them both until they told me what on earth they were doing. I hadn't managed to actually catch either of them, though. They were annoyingly good at vanishing when I tried to approach them. But I definitely wanted to ask them why they were following me around because, it was a little annoying, not to mention weird. I'm going with Drayson. I didn't want to deal with Brenna, so I was going to corner Drayson. But that meant waiting until after school because I didn't want to be in a crowded hallway and there was no other opportunity. Fortunately, though, it was easy to find and even easier to bully. I'm sorry. We were standing at the top of the stairs on the 4th floor where, fortunately, there was no one else around. I wasn't following you. Yes, you were. You were obviously following me. Completely crumbled at that, covering his face with his hands. I felt almost bad about interrogating him. It was Brenna's idea. Is this some weird fae thing? I'm one of you, so you guys are going to stalk me around? We were just worried after this morning. I mean, he nearly fainted. How did Brennan even know about it? She wasn't there. I don't know. I didn't tell her. Maybe Ewan did? Otherwise, it meant she'd already been watching me before the argument with Kara. Listen, I appreciate the concern, but I don't need bodyguards. I wasn't trying to. I'm sorry. I'm not mad at you, okay? Just please stop following me around and watching me. It's a little creepy. Drayson peeked out from behind his fingers. You're really not mad? Of course not. It's just disconcerting to know someone's following me around, keeping an eye on me. If you want to check up on me or make sure I'm okay, you can just ask, Okay. So we have a deal? No more following me? He nodded. Good. We parted ways after that, and I was just relieved it had been easy enough to shut down the little bit of weird. Are all fae this crazy? Or did they just go weird at this time of year? My phone chimed as I was about to start upstairs, and I quickly dug it out of my pocket. Hey, come down to the parking lot. I'm with Shelly. We're ready to head to your house. On my way. I shoved it back in my book bag and quickly headed down. It looked like we'd been spending club time at my house working on the sleepwalking thing. After a quick round of introductions downstairs, we all hopped in Ellie's car and headed to my house. We'd probably have an hour or two before Mom gets home. We shouldn't need that long. Probably didn't even need to come, but Ellie thought it would be helpful. I quickly unlocked the front door and pushed it open. How's the brownie situation, by the way? Oh, I think it's better. I left some snacks out for it, and it seems to have calmed down. You have a brownie? How sweet. Yeah, well, you'd think that, but Spencer managed to piss it off, and it was pranking him like crazy for a while. Oh dear, how did that happen? I'm not totally sure, but I think it may have to do with the fact that he kicked some mushrooms over in the fairy ring out back. That's the only thing I can think of anyway. Shelly shot Allie a quick look. You have a fairy ring here? I looked from one to the other curiously. Yeah, is that an issue? We had one at our last house too, and it was no big deal. Ellie, you remember it, right? We used to play in it all the time. I'd forgotten about it, but now that you mention it, can you show it to me? Sure. Surprised by this turn of events, I led him through the house and out the backyard. I stopped just outside the ring and pointed to the shriveled remnants of broken mushroom caps. That's where Spencer kicked it, but you can see it's already grown new ones. Shelly was frowning down at it pretty hard. Ewan didn't seem to think much of it though, so I wasn't sure why Shelly was so bothered by it. I don't like this. Do you feel that, Ellie? Feel what? It definitely gives off a weird feeling. I don't feel anything though. Maybe because you're Fae. Well, fairy rings are supposed to be dangerous for humans. Maybe that's why it feels strange to you guys. Witches still count as mortals, right? I mean, I had no idea. I was still new to all this. We do. Crochet, listen. Sometimes fairy rings are just mushrooms. Normal mushrooms growing in a weird pattern. But sometimes they can form a gate to the fairy world. That's why they can be dangerous. And considering your parents are human, and possibly Spencer, yeah, this one could be a problem. If the brownie got that angry and at your brother for just kicking a few mushrooms over, it's clear this one has some connection to fairies, and with that weird aura it's giving off. Gates of the fairy world aside, imagine what would happen if your dad tries to get rid of it or something, or if he mows over it. Ugh, the brownie would completely freak out. I hadn't even thought about that. What do we do? There are ways to get rid of it without losing the Fae, but it will be tricky. It's not really my area of expertise, or mine. I think we'll take some time to put together. We'll have to do some research. You think the reason I'm sleepwalking has to do with this thing? To be honest, I don't know. I mean, it could. If that was the case, getting rid of it was definitely a good idea. It may take some time to figure out the exact source of that, but in the meantime, we have a short-term solution. Yes, please, it's definitely not getting any better. Hopefully not getting worse. That's a matter of debate. What happened? I don't really remember much of it. It's never all that clear in the mornings. What do you remember? Just feelings? The feeling of being suffocated, of wanting to get out? Sometimes memory of voices, music, it's all very vague. There's this feeling like my body is moving against my will, like someone else is controlling it. It's really disconcerting. We put something together to keep you inside at night, but it isn't a fix. I think it would be wise to continue to look into this to see if you can find the root cause. I agree. In the meantime, let's go to your room. We'll show you what we brought. Up in my room, I flopped on the bed while Ellie and Shelly had to look around. Shelly poked her head into the bathroom. I assume you usually just head out through the main door? Yeah, I've tried setting up little barriers, things to trip myself up, piles of shoes or whatever I can do without someone noticing. Sleepwalking me is a little too smart to fall for those kinds of things. And she's apparently too smart to try to escape through Spencer's room too. He's a pretty light sleeper, so that definitely wouldn't go over well. Well, for now, I think my original plan would work. And what plan is that? She fished 2 little jars out of her bag and set them on my desk. What are those? Do you know what a fairy bane is? Yeah, I've read about fairy plants. Banes are plants fairies don't like. More than that, some banes can actually be harmful or act as protection to keep them out. My idea was to try to use that concept to keep you in. She picked up one jar and held it out to me. I reached for it but hissed and drew my hand back at the moment my fingers touched the glass. What is that? Burns? A little. I mean, it didn't hurt that much. It surprised me. Some mixture of St. John's wort and some other fairy banes. I thought you could try sprinkling it in your door. We'll create a low-level barrier that should either keep you in or at least wake you up if you try to cross it. To be safe, I put some on the window ledge too. We don't know how determined your sleeping self is, but it would definitely not be good if you tried to go out the window. Yeah, I can't see that ending well for me unless Sleeping Me also has superpowers. The other jar, the one with the ribbon, that one is a dispelling mixture. You are eventually going to need to get out of your room. Yeah, can't imagine having to explain to mom why I can't leave my room in the morning. If you put it down over the barrier, it should counteract the effects and let you leave. I'm also making some water-based infusions for you since I think it will be easier to spritz that in the doorway rather than sprinkling plants, but it's not ready yet. In the meantime, you might want to stick using gloves when you put down the barrier. Yeah, probably a good idea. And look, a final word of warning here. You might want to keep an eye out for things that might be encouraging fairy activity here. Things? It's not unusual for houses here in Pine Hollow to have brownies or other tutelary spirits. But, in your case, to have the brownie inside and the fairy ring outside, have you seen any other fairies around? Well, there have been a few, aside from that Spriggan. I've seen a few other ones lurking around the yard. Most look pretty harmless, small, skittish, mushroomy. I think I've dreamed about them being in the house though. I'm not really sure whether it was a dream or not, to be honest. I'm just worried because looking like you have some deep connections to fairy that predate you finding out about your own heritage. And then coincidentally, your parents happen to pick a house with a fae occupant. Fairies around outside and other fairy activity, and then you started sleepwalking right away. It may not be a coincidence. There may be other fairy magics at work. So what exactly do I keep an eye out for? Anything that looks out of place. Plants that shouldn't be where they are. Cut flowers that stay fresh for basically ever. Yesterday, when I went to the basement to put out some milk for the brownie, I did find something. I just didn't think much of it. I thought the brownie may have put it there, so I left it alone. Can you show us? I nodded and led them back downstairs. It didn't take long to run down and get the little bunch of flowers I found, and several others I hadn't noticed the first time around. In the end, we had 5 bunches set out on the kitchen table. They all looked pretty fresh, and all were tied together with some sort of twine. Primroses and thyme. I think these are definitely fairy favors. They might have been gathered up by the brownie, but we should definitely get rid of them. Having them in the house can encourage other fairies to waltz right in. Ugh. Did you see anything else odd down there? Well, no. To be fair, I don't entirely know what I might be looking for besides weird bunches of herbs. There was nothing else that didn't look like it belonged. Well, I'm glad we checked. I'm glad I came over. I'm glad you guys know more about fairies than I do. I was seriously glad about that, because it had never occurred to me that a little bouquet of flowers might have some kind of ominous effect on the house. I did some research the past few days. I've been doing research for the last week. Well, I guess I do have enough experience to know what to look up. Listen, just keep an eye out for more of these things showing up. And if they do, toss them outside, not in the bin. Thank you guys so much. Anytime. And now, I need to head out. Already, you guys can stay for dinner if you want. I like to, but alas, there's no magic spell for homework. Then what's even the point of being a witch, right? We laughed and I showed them to the door. At least if mom turned up now, I could shrug it all off as a study group and not a group of evil, conniving, magical friends imbuing the house with fairy veins. I watched as Allie and Shelley piled back into the car and I waved them off. I was just hugging my arms against the cold and was about to step inside when I heard the familiar growl of a motorbike. I ducked behind the eaves of the entranceway, watching as Ewan pulled up in Elliot's driveway. Weird, since there was no one home. Seemingly materializing from nowhere, a black cat showed up. Walking along the top of the fence, I raised an eyebrow as Ewan picked it up and cradled it against his chest. It looked like he was talking to it. Is he stopping by to talk to Elliot's cat? Because that was weird, even by fairy standards. I shook my head and just went inside. I had other things to worry about. I ran my hands through my hair with a long sigh. That done, I had homework of my own. It was a little weird stepping back into the real world from an afternoon of potions and fairy magic. The paranormal didn't seem to just easily blend into real life to the point that it became part of every day. Instead, it stood inside its own little realm where I usually was pulled against my will, and I had to move back and forth between that and normal life. It made it harder to get used to it all when it only seemed to rear its head sometimes. But with luck, Allie and Shelley's visit today meant I would have to deal with the more annoying aspects of the paranormal far less now. That was definitely something to look forward to. Alright, thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.